Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome. First of all, welcome to this very special webinar and discussion called Scicomm Careers, Insights from the Frontlines. We've got three really great guests for you tonight who I'm going to introduce in just a moment. A little bit about me. So my name is Ankur. I'm from Flamingo. And Flamingo is a science communication initiative based in Berlin. That's Berlin in Germany, not the Berlin in South Africa or El Salvador or one of the many Berlins in the United States of America. Yeah, and I'm a pharmacist turned biomedical researcher. And yeah, so we're really interested in science communication. And so what we've got for you today is we've got three really great guests, and they're all doing completely different things in the area of science communication with a particular focus on biomedical science. And also hello to anyone on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is, of course, taking the world by storm. And by the world, I mean people with an iPhone who have some extra time on their hands. And yeah, so we're just trying it out there. And for anybody who's on there, just to let you know, there's going to be, all the audio should be coming through basically Aaron's phone. And so don't be confused. It's just that our guests are not joining us via Clubhouse. And so they're there. It's not just Aaron in the background doing some sort of performance with different voice characters or something like that. Yeah, so on Clubhouse also, I encourage you to get involved then when the panel discussion starts. You can raise your hand and ask questions there. And yeah, so as I mentioned, we have three very special guests. They're doing completely different things. And between the three of them, they also have a lot of experience in different areas of science and research and communication, including blogging and writing, animations, especially 3D animations and molecular visualization, medical communications with an agency, entrepreneurship, science slams, public speaking, conference organization. So really, if this is something that you're interested in, you have the opportunity to join in on the discussion and ask whatever you like. And so the way we're going to do this is each of the guests is going to get a few minutes to talk about whatever they want, and they'll introduce themselves and give you an idea of who they are, what they're doing. And then we're going to just jump into the panel discussion. So you can get involved, you can put your questions on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever you're watching this, or you can put up your hand on Clubhouse and ask there. And so, yeah, I encourage everybody to get involved. We have, let's say, about an hour total for the event. And yeah, we think it's going to be really, really good. So without further ado, I would like to bring up our first guest. We have Dr. Sarah Wettstadt, who's a microbiologist by training, and she completed her PhD at Imperial College London, and now she's the director of her company called Microbial Communications. So Sarah, welcome.
Hello, Ankur. Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. So you should see that now, right? No? The other one. Yes. Okay, yes. So as Ankur said, I'm Sarah Wettstadt. I'm originally from Germany and now I live in Gran Canaria. And I kind of want to talk to you about my little journey from the bench to the beach and what you can make with a scientific career if you really want to. So I started my PhD in microbiology in London at the Imperial College. And as most of you might know, doing a PhD is mainly about researching and experimenting and, you know, finding your life in the scientific community and trying to figure out how it all works. Besides, and there's not much time to do anything else really. And afterwards, I did a postdoc in the same field in Granada in southern Spain. And during that time, I already realized that I kind of wanted to do something else, that I learned so much during my PhD, during my postdoc, but I was only kind of allowed just to share all this knowledge with other scientists. And I wanted to share just with everybody else. Like, I feel everybody else has the right to know about what's going on in science and the microbiology field, for example. So I started publishing this blog, which I call Bacterial World, in which I explain a lot of bacterial concepts or microbiology papers, publications. And I was lucky enough to collaborate on this blog with a fantastic science artist, Noemi Mate, and she illustrates amazing comics for the blog, which gains a lot of attention on social media and makes the blog really, really nice and colorful and engaging. And I also did a bit of science writing. For example, I wrote several highlight research articles for a microbiology journal. And I also got engaged with social media and became a social media editor for a microbiology society. And I liked all of this so much that I knew when the pandemic hit and my contract in Granada ended, I needed to do something else now. And there was just no place for me in academia anymore. So I decided to found my own science communication and science writing business, which I just called Microbial Communications because I think the name just suits. And that's what I did the end of last year. And the beginning of this year, I also got involved with a video platform, which we called STEMcognito, in which we deposit STEM-related videos. And we invite all scientists basically to produce videos about their science, about their research, and to publish them there, both for scientists and non-scientists. And this basically brought me from being a microbiologist in the lab to now having a little microbiology lab in the garden where I just grow them in Gran Canaria where it's warm enough. What do I want to do? What do I want to achieve with my work? So I think I think it's super important to empower people by sharing scientific knowledge. And I do that once by empowering non-scientists. So I want to inform people on microbiology topics. I want them to make better informed decisions so that they can create better and healthier lives for themselves. And this is what I do basically with the Bacterial World blog and with the STEMcognito video platform where we publish popular science articles basically. And I also want to empower scientists so what I do is I coach scientists in science communication and science writing so that they can better share their scientific knowledge with both the scientific field and non-scientists, so that then this goes back to empowering the non-scientists. And this I fulfill with my science communication business, with the coaching that I'm doing, and also now I am a blog commissioner for the Microbiology Society. Okay, that was a bit of an overview about the work I'm doing and I have done. If you have any questions about any of this or want to find out more, just shoot me an email, send me a message, or just let me know. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And actually, so you can even start queuing up your questions in the comment section of the YouTube video now, and then we can get to them when the panel discussion comes. And Sarah, it looks like you have a fan in the YouTube comments. Somebody writes, I really love reading your blog articles. So I guess you got a couple of people here, a couple of fans joining us today. So yeah, by all means, start queuing up your questions if anything came to mind about what Sarah does or her career path. And we'll get to those soon enough. And so the next person to introduce themselves will be Joel Hornby. So Joel is originally from the UK, and now he's based in Berlin, and he's representing his company, Molecular Visuals. So Joel.
Hi, Anko. Thanks very much for the introduction, and thank you for sharing my screen there, Aaron. Yeah, so as Anko says, I'm based in Berlin, and I'm working towards developing a company called Molecular Visuals. We do illustrations and animations of life sciences, but also want to tell you a little bit about how I got into science communication, and that was through conference production. So conference production is basically when you have a topic for a conference, or you come up with a topic for a conference, you research it, you validate it, then you invite the speakers and create an agenda. And usually if in life sciences, that involves, you know, working with researchers from academia and industry. And then once you have your agenda, you project manage the conference with your sales, marketing, and event management teams until you actually do the conference. And whilst you're on site, you're the face of the conference, you know, inviting all the speakers. And I fell into that through looking for graduate careers on the UK website, prospects.ac.uk. And you can find a little bit more information about it on the Albany appointments link there as well. I'll share these slides and all these links afterwards, after the presentation. Yeah, so obviously with coronavirus, conference companies going through a bit of a tough time, but there are quite a few great conference companies that are doing great events out there. One I previously worked for, Cambridge Innovation Institute, is a fantastic company, a lot of great people there. I'd highly recommend it. Informa is probably one of the biggest exhibition companies in the world, if not the biggest. And then you have a lot of academic and society type meetings, EMBL, Keystone, Gordon Research Conferences. They have fewer conference producers, but they also have wonderful agendas that are really worth looking at. And it was through my work in conference production that I had the fortune to go to the VISB conference in 2016 about visualizing biological data. And from that point, I decided that I wanted to do a little bit more science illustration and animation. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to meet Dr. Gail McGill there. He has a company called DigiZine, who's an agency that mainly do sort of 3D animations of life sciences. But he's also set up this wonderful resource called Clarify. And if anyone's interested in scientific illustration animation, especially sort of 3D animations of molecular biology, I would really recommend going and checking that out. And then there's a big organization called the Association of Medical Illustrators. And they're predominantly people who have done these medical illustration courses, of which there are quite a lot in America. But they're also really helpful for people like me who have a science background and less of an art background. Yeah, they're really great. And then there's plenty of companies in this area, but you also tend to see more people doing science illustration on like a freelance basis. I just want to show you a little bit of my work now. On the left here, we have a GPCR receptor in a lipid bilayer. And on the right, this is a journal cover submission. It's about Rubisco being activated by Rubisco activase. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has been pretty horrific for a lot of people, and there's been a pretty tragic loss of life. And this has invoked a lot of science communication around the topic. And I wanted to do my own visualization of the virus itself. And, you know, they talk about this in science illustration as like visualizing a moving target, because there's so much research coming out all the time. To show this, on the left is an earlier image I did of the virus, and on the right is a later image. And in the middle, you have two different transformations of the spike protein. On the top is the pre-fusion spike protein. On the bottom is the post-fusion spike protein. And a piece of research came out later last year that showed that the virus itself actually has just as many post-fusion spike proteins as pre-fusion on its surface, or quite a high ratio. So that's why I updated the image to the image on the right to show those post-fusion spike proteins as well. Yeah, that's it for me on this presentation, but I look forward to answering your questions. If you want to see more of my work, go to www.molecularvisuals.com. You can also email me, info@molecularvisuals.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Joel. And that was really good. Really interesting visualization work that you do there. I'm sure we're probably gonna need a lot of questions about that as well. Yeah, so we have one more guest to introduce, but I will say, and I noticed that there is some activity going on in the comments, so keep that coming. We're keeping track of all the questions you're asking, and we will pose them to our panel in just a few minutes when we get to the panel discussion part of the event. So for now, I would like to bring up our final guest. And our final guest is Dr. Jakob Morath, and he's from Germany originally. And actually, he started out studying law in the beginning, but then he switched to biology. And maybe we can ask him about why he made that career choice and if he's happy with it. But I suspect he is. Law sounds kind of boring. So we have Jake coming on in a moment. Yeah, so before he studied biology, he studied law, but he actually recently just completed his PhD work at the Max Planck Institute for Infection Biology here in Berlin. And now he works at Dopamine Healthcare Communication. So let's bring on Jakob.
Hello. Thanks a lot, Anchor, and thanks a lot, everyone at Flamingo, for this really kind invitation. I mean, regarding your question, what brought me from law to biology, I just couldn't memorize all those laws. And I didn't realize there were a lot of biological laws that I would have to memorize when I studied biology. So yeah, I went from one memorizing heavy topic to the other, but I don't regret it, actually. I quite enjoy biology. So I was told to prepare some slides to give you just a brief introduction also of what I've been doing and how I came into the topic of science communication. There was a problem now with sharing those slides, so let's see if we figure that out. Anko, just give me a sign when it works. I might just continue talking. So I have a pretty classical career of a biologist. I went through bachelor, master's, and PhD. I did my bachelor's degree in southern Germany in the nice place Constance. You might have heard of the Lake of Constance. So that's where I studied with frequent interruptions, internships here and there, exchange semesters here and there. So I tried to make use of any possibility to leave for some months and then come back. And eventually graduated with first a bachelor and then a master's. For the master's, I actually went to Paris for 1 year. So I did my master's thesis in Paris. And then roughly 5 years ago, came back to Berlin to work on my PhD at the Max Planck Institute for Infection Biology. And yeah, the time of my PhD was also the time when I started getting involved with science communication. If I could share the screens now, you would see that I wrote down some amazing bullet points where I tell you all the amazing things that I did as science communication, but okay, that's not needed. So during the PhD, I started with science slams, which is a pretty German thing, I realized. So I'm not sure whether I might not explain that briefly. So science slams, that is basically a format where scientists, normally PhD students or postdocs, explain their topic of research to a lay audience in all kinds of event places. Might be bars, might be kind of concert places, but it's in general you go on stage and people are there to learn something, but also to be entertained. So the purpose is always I'm just seeing Canada has science slams. Okay, thanks, Diane Fisher, for this update. Sorry, I wasn't informed. Anyway, I think it's a pretty nice format because you go on stage and you try to entertain people and to inform people with what you've actually been working on all day or all week or the last few years. This is how I got started with science communication. Then there are a few similar formats. FameLab is one. FameLab is actually one where you're just on stage for 3 minutes and you're not supposed to use any slides, whereas Science Slams, you're on stage for 10 minutes using slides. And there's some other things. I also, within the graduate school that I attended, we organized a small conference for one day. So I would say that was also something in the realm of science communication. Certainly very interesting experience, very rewarding in the end as well when it all works out, like after a month of preparation. And I also want to actually make a point of all the failures in terms of science communication that I went through. So I at some point also started writing a little bit with the idea of maybe writing a blog or publishing some articles in German for a lay audience somewhere. Those projects somehow didn't really succeed until now. I also had actually the idea of a video production, so to say, which in the end also didn't take off. I'm just saying it because I think it's you hear a lot about successes of people, but yeah, there are many failures as well. So those were things that I started but couldn't quite finish off until now. Let's see what's happening. Now, as Ankur indicated, I finished my PhD, and I'm still active with the science slamming, although you're supposed to talk about your own research. So I'm not sure how much longer I will be able to do that, but maybe for another year. Oh, I see that my slides came on. So we can jump straight to slide number 3, I think. Is this me doing it? Well, I don't know. Whoever's in control of the slides, you can move forward if you like. Okay, here we go. So this is a nice picture of Constance. This is where I studied. I think I told you those pictures don't have any informative character. I just like them so much that I put them there. Then there should be coming up a picture of Paris, the institute where I worked. Ankur, you want? Exactly. So this is Paris and Berlin. And we can actually jump to the next slide. Yeah, and here I just wanted to, I can quickly go through these again. So I did science slams. I also talked about this. FameLab was also part of science communication during the PhD conference organization. And one thing I forgot, Twitter. I mean, at some point, many scientists around me started having their Twitter accounts, so I also started. I think with Twitter, something's tricky because, of course, you need something to talk about, and if you don't constantly publish amazing papers, it's hard. I also didn't want to kind of tweet about my private life and my breakfast and so on. So yeah, I'm not super active on Twitter, but it's certainly a very nice medium. I mean, I'm more following people than actually being really active and sending out lots of stuff, but yeah, it's certainly interesting. Then, yeah, my failures, I said that, the blog, videos, and probably many other things that I already forgot. And then, so now is the time actually after the PhD. I'm still active with the science slams. I'm still on Twitter following people. Actually, I follow a lot of scientists, so that's very interesting. I also follow a lot of science communicators because in the end, there's a big bubble of science communicators just talking about science communication and how to communicate science communication to other science communicators. So it's a little bit of a bubble, but it's also nice and interesting, and it's growing a lot, and there's a lot of content. And so now what I'm doing professionally for now a few months is I'm a medical advisor at a communication agency. And yeah, I just try to kind of explain this position in one sentence. Of course, I'm very happy to take questions afterwards on this. Basically, as a medical advisor at this agency, I am somehow the bridge between the client, and our clients are biotech or pharma companies, and the creative people in our agencies. So in the end, we are approached by people that would like to have certain clinical or scientific information delivered somehow to the public, and we try to do it in the best possible way. And of course, we have a lot of experts in terms of graphics and digital campaigning and so on and so forth, but they don't necessarily understand about the science behind the products that we want to communicate about. So this is a little bit when my role is relevant. in this back and forth communication between the science and clinical background on the client side and the creative people at the agency. And with this, I'm done. And I forgot to say, we're actually looking for people. So this company is called Dopamine Healthcare Communication. They're actively looking for people with scientific or creative backgrounds. So if that could be interesting to you, maybe look them up and get in touch with me. Very happy to provide contacts there. Okay, so far for me. Thanks for the presentation, Ankur. Sorry that didn't work out from the beginning. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Paul, or Jacob, sorry. Yeah, and sorry for the technical difficulties there. I missed some of your presentation as well, which I guess ended up being kind of relevant or apparent to everybody. But I'm glad we got through it, and like a seasoned science communicator, you're rolling with the punches and with the technical difficulties, and it all worked out.
I hope.
All right, so now let's get to some of the questions that we had from the audience so far. We actually had a couple for Sarah. Somebody asked, when did your blog actually kick off? So I guess maybe you can give us a timeline of when you started and when it exploded.
I started in January 2019, so it was just like 3-4 months into my postdoc that I was like, let's do something on top of the research. I just need a little side project, you know. So now it's been 2 years. It's constantly growing, and yeah, it hasn't really exploded yet, but unfortunately, but maybe it will at some point. Let's see.
Okay, well maybe we can change that tonight. Actually, on that topic, I'd like to follow up because you mentioned that it was your side project when you were doing research. And we had a question from Valerie who asked, how did you actually organize your blog posts? So in terms of picking topics and doing the writing alongside your research career?
Picking topics is super easy. Whatever interesting publication came across my mind, I just decided to write about it basically. Learn all about the about the background and research a bit more about the topic, and then just write a nice blog post about it. Or sometimes people asked a question on the blog or commented on it, or a friend asked me a question of like, oh, for example, when the pandemic hit last year, I got this message from my brother being like, so actually, can you tell me what is the difference between a virus and a bacterium? I'm not sure I really get it. So it's like, obviously that's such an obvious question and it deserves a full blog post. So yeah, I wrote that down within like 2 hours, and yeah, gained massive traffic that day because yeah, everybody just heard of COVID, but nobody really knew, oh, it's a virus. What's a virus? Wait, there's bacteria as well? What's going on? So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that's a good starting point. I think when you get a prompt where there's, because at least I've found in my science career, which has been kind of long now at this point, I guess. I don't say that as a brag or something. It's just like looking back, I don't remember when I learned what I learned. And so things that seem obvious, like it seems like basic knowledge to you because it's just part of your vocabulary, it's part of your working life. And it's easy to forget, like, when did I actually learn that? Is that common knowledge?
Yeah.
And so it's a great prompt for material. And actually, I think before I forget, Jakob, somebody wanted to thank you for sharing your failures with everybody, because I think it's true. It's kind of rare that people do that. So actually, on that note, since you shared one of your failures, I think that's an interesting question for the other panel members.
I shared a very minor portion of my failures. But yeah,
okay, so there's much more.
There's much more, I assure you.
Yeah, well, I guess as a scientist, we can all relate to that.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I mean, I think even from going back to after my bachelor's degree, I kind of thought then that I wanted to do medicine. In retrospect, I'm really glad I didn't, because I've probably been a terrible medical doctor. It's a really hard job, and my friends that are medical doctors, they're much better suited to it than I. Somebody asked also, how long is it taking to transition between the conference production and the illustration animation? The answer was it's still ongoing. The plan was kind of to do both side by side, but obviously with the pandemic, there's no conference work at the moment. So I've invested a lot more time in the illustration and visualization, which I've been doing for like the past 5 years alongside a master's in molecular biology. And there's a lot of that's been self-taught, and learning the software that I use Autodesk Maya for 3D, and then you use Adobe Suite. I use Illustrator, Photoshop, and After Effects for various parts of illustrations and animations. But there's like a bunch of software that I would love to learn as well, like Cinema 4D, Houdini, virtual reality, and augmented reality programs like Unity and Unreal. There just isn't enough time in the day, really. Ongoing process of transitioning and doing a lot of stuff kind of freelance side by side. It takes a lot of hard work sometimes. I think we might have lost Anchor here. Sarah, do you want to share your
failures?
Challenges maybe, rather than failures.
Failures in the lab was often just technical related, like bacteria just wouldn't grow the way they were growing last week. What the heck is going on? All of this, but I'm kind of glad I got out of it. So now failures are more people-based, I would say. So it's not as random anymore, which is kind of what I like. Even now there's still failures, especially like when you just start your own business, but you can always understand them better, and you can understand the reasoning behind them, and just make the best out of it. Which I like a lot more than being in the lab and
absolutely. As a caveat as well, I think a lot of people get into science communication because they're not destined for the lab as well. Or like me in particular, I realized that very early on. So that's why I went looking around the communication route, because we love science, eh?
Yeah. And there's a question: how do we keep metrics of the impact of this science communication? I'm just going to start that. So obviously with the blog, I can directly look at metrics. How many visitors does every entry have, for example? Or comments on social media is extremely important. Like some blog posts, when I publish them, they get a lot of traction, a lot of messages and quotes and retweets, whatever, which is always a good sign. But then some are just, they don't have that. And you're like, okay, maybe this topic is just not well for people. Not that they don't care, maybe they just don't. Maybe they just don't care.
You use any tools to track those metrics?
On WordPress you can integrate different analytics. Like you can integrate Google Analytics, and just to see how many people are on the blog, how long did they stay on the blog to actually read a post, or where they clicked after your article, and all of this. Yes, you can see that.
I'm using analytics too.
Maybe I can also just briefly say something to that question, although I have to admit that I'm not really, the only way I take the metrics of that, let's say, is I post something on Twitter, and then I see how many people looked at it or might have liked it or retweeted it. But at the same time, I'm not a very, let's say the numbers of Twitter followers and retweets that I got is it's limited. It's not through the roof yet. I used to believe that I'm an influencer when I passed the 100 follower limit. So I'm, it's nice to see that people get engaged, then maybe also retweet your stuff or answer and comment to it. But and I have to admit, it was always really a hobby for me, and I didn't very actively pursue this and follow the metrics of that.
Anke, can you hear us? I think there's another question was like, how much time do we invest promoting our work?
Well, interesting. Well, I think that, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, once again, sorry everybody for my my poor connection. Well, let me know if I missed this part of the discussion when I was lagging behind there, but we had a couple other questions in the comments about whether or not you think the PhD is required. And I guess since Joel, you finished your master's and jumped into your own business, so I guess that kind of, I mean, I guess of course there's always a benefit to having some sort of expertise, but it's not like it's an entry requirement.
Yeah,
like there's no reason why you can't learn things on your own.
I mean, to that point, I would say, it completely depends on the role. I know like conference production was, a lot of people come in after bachelors, but you tend, like in my last company, I was one of the only people that didn't have a PhD. So, you get a real mix. Depends on the role, depends on the company, depends if you want to do it freelance or not, and how active you are in developing your portfolio, whether that be writing or illustration or animation. If you've got a good portfolio, you're more likely to get hired, you're more likely to get some freelance work. But yeah, I mean, just having a master's certainly isn't a barrier to working in some form in science communications, obviously. But for some roles, a PhD does help.
Okay.
Yeah, I would actually second that. I mean, I think it's really possible both ways. You don't really need the PhD. I mean, in many positions, you can do a very good job of science communicator without it. So, I mean, and Joel is the best example. Having said that, I have to say that in the role that I currently have, the experience of my PhD is helping me a lot. I mean, it is amazing how different the job that I'm doing now is from my PhD position. The difference is really huge. It's very exciting. But at the same time, the PhD really prepared me very well for many of the things that I'm doing now. I'm not saying you wouldn't be able to do it without a PhD. This is absolutely not what I'm saying. But I think I personally would have needed really a lot of extra time to kind of start with this job and have the feeling that I'm doing a good job. In my current position. So it is possible without. It might sometimes help to have a PhD or to have gone through the experience of a PhD.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's very important. I think, especially when you're in the midst of a PhD, especially if you're, I don't know, let's say halfway through and your experiments aren't working, you might start to wonder, is this worthwhile? Like, why am I doing this? Do I need to do this? But I think that there's a lot of value in the experience of it. Like it really is sort of a training ground for all sorts of challenges that you're gonna encounter, no matter what you decide to do afterwards. We have an interesting question from the audience here about how do you think the role of science communication will change in the next few years? Anybody wants to jump in onto that? I think that's quite relevant, given the a lot of the weird sort of skepticism that we have around science in the public these days.
And I mean, maybe I can just kind of briefly say something, and then I'm sure Sarah and Joel have also very good points about this. I mean, I think it's only going to grow at the moment because there's so much. I mean, there are so many fake news and things out there than we all witnessed throughout the last year that suddenly things like incidents and our values, and like the post-pandemic situation got so important. So I think there's a really huge need for people to explain those kind of things. And it's also already on an institutional level you can show. I mean, I think the Ministry for Science and Education in Germany already put that in as one of the points that they value actually when they decide whether scientists should be getting grants. So I think in general it is something that would be rising, and many institutions also now investing in this and hiring people for their science or for their communication departments to really show the people what all this tax money that normally goes into research is used for.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with it. Like, especially now with the pandemic, we see that people really need to know what is going on in science and how the scientific field works, how the scientific method works. Until now, people didn't need to know that, or didn't really care, didn't need to care. So yeah, now it just becomes more and more important. So it becomes more and more important to have people like us just in the transition between scientists and non-scientists to be the translators for them.
Right. And actually, just to follow up just briefly, and then I feel like Joel also wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
But just I wanted to ask, because it came up, we did some polls before the event, and something that a lot of people were interested in was what the opportunities are like in science communications. I mean, we've established that there's clearly a need, there's a public need for this kind of service. So from within the field, how do you feel about the opportunity that's out there?
So I wanted to first answer that question about how science communication is changing from 2 points, from perspective of the conferences and the visualizations. First of all, with the conferences, obviously with the pandemic and the global lockdowns and travel restrictions, live conferences weren't possible. So we saw a lot of conference companies and other organizations hop to online events and webinars, even trying to do 3-day conferences online, which is a kind of a model that was tested and aborted by a lot of companies a long time ago. And what we're seeing now is, like, with so many online events, that there's a bit of sort of online fatigue and saturation, and that people are really screaming out for live events again. And I think, we're going to see live events come out big. But what we might see more of, and what a lot of people are saying, is we'll see more hybrid events. And that's where you kind of have live events that are screened online and stuff as well, like TED Talks and stuff. But I can see, from my own personal experience with conferences, that not all conferences can go in that direction, especially when you've got pharma companies sharing preclinical data that they don't really want shared with the rest of the world yet. They might want to keep that, a bit more low key. And then on the visualization side of things, like I said in my introduction, coronavirus has created an incredible case study for the visual communication of science, and especially the virus itself. And there's a complete amazing breadth of the detail and accuracy of these animations and illustrations. And I'd really recommend going to check out the Association of Medical Illustrators, because they have a sort of a portfolio saloon, they call it, of different images of coronavirus. And also there was a really interesting journal article, online publication, you would call it, not a journal article, by Wired, when they basically talked about what medical illustrators have been doing during the pandemic. And sorry, Anchor, I forgot your second question there, but perhaps better to let Sarah or Jakob answer it.
Oh, no worries. Well, no, that's all very, actually, that leads perfectly into the question, which was, what do you think about the opportunities that exist in this field in science communication? Actually, the pandemic has it's terrible, of course, but it's also created these opportunities when people realize the importance for communication. Sarah, Jacob, before we moved on to another topic, did you want to jump in on that point, or
Sure. I think
anything to add?
it mainly depends on what you want to do. So for example, I like writing, I like reading. So I call myself a science writer. So I do anything when it comes to writing articles, writing blog articles, writing books. So that's everything that you can do as a science communicator, like being a science writer. Then obviously you can go into illustrating, or if you have an artistic hand and you just draw and so that's actually one of the questions. If I just jump over there in the blog. So I do not draw anything because I cannot draw at all. So I have someone who's drawing all the fantastic comics for the blog, and she is an amazing science artist. And I'm sure after her postdoc, she's gonna do something amazing in the science communication world with her artistic hand for sure. So that's another journey that you can go down in science communication, or even design. Or I heard of people that gamify scientific topics, so they create games based on scientific concepts. There's so many things that you can do, like just let your creativity play around, and there's so much. You just need to find your own niche, I guess.
Actually, to add to that, Sarah, the gamification is huge in the visualization part of science, and we're seeing like virtual reality and augmented reality really making a big impact now. There's a company called Labster. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do basically virtual labs for students to learn in, and then there's other companies that are using VR in a similar way, but to help with like communicating and marketing life sciences products or lab equipment and things. So yeah, that's huge.
We lost Anko again.
Jacob, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think I second you, like what Sarah said. Let your creativity go wild, and there's lots of different ways of expressing yourself and finding ways of getting the science out there. And I mean, we all have talents. My talent is certainly not drawing, so I really admire you, Joel, for what you're doing. And what I found very enjoyable was this to be on stage and present those things. So it's nice that there's all those different ways. Actually, Ankur, if it's okay, there were some questions at the beginning that I noted down, and I would just quickly answer.
For sure. I think I might have missed some of them when I was the last time
I will be very quick, because I also don't want to hijack this, but I thought it's nice maybe if someone asked them to just quickly. So I saw that there was a question about how many hours per week. I'm not sure if it was meant a question to all of us or just for this medical advisor position. And I would just say it's 40 hours, so it's really a very normal job. Then there was a question of how did you land your job? And I have to say I was just lucky. Someone who knew that I was looking for a job saw that I'm interested in communication and in science, and so I was contacted. That was very lucky. Then whether the local language is necessary was another question. I would say in my particular company, yes, because we work for the German market. So many of the products that we produce, of the materials, are actually in German. So it certainly helps to speak German. I mean, if you're drawing graphics and so on, of course, it's not absolutely necessary. But for the part of medical writing or medical advisor, there I would say it is necessary. And then there was actually a last question that I saw about science communication in other languages than English, and I think that kind of goes together with the previous question. I think there, especially in Germany, because it's a big country, there's a big need actually for science communication in German, and I think that might be the case in other places as well. So sorry, Anko, for just quickly addressing those questions. I hope that was okay.
No, that's totally cool. Actually, I would prefer if people could jump in, especially I didn't anticipate having the technical difficulties on my end. So every time I get kicked out, I also lose track of which questions have been asked. So by all means, if there's something else that you guys wanted to jump in on, please do.
Jakob, as an extension to what you were saying there about how you fell into your role, I've noticed there's it seems like a similar role to medical science liaison. Do you know? You familiar with that?
Yeah. So what's the question?
Yeah. So did you look at medical science liaison roles as well as like medical advisor roles at the same time? And have you had any experience with medical science liaison? Because that seems to be quite a common career path for PhDs wanting to communicate science within an employed setting.
Yeah. So to be honest, no, I haven't. I didn't look into the medical science liaison part. For me, what was, although I agree, I mean, to a certain extent, it is a very similar role, because in the end, you're trying to explain how a certain compound works, or to, what's the molecular basis, what's the mode of action, what might also be adverse effects, and so on. This is of course also part of the medical science liaison role. What I actually find quite interesting about the current role, so the role at the communication agency, is this this in-between role. So you're like in between the people who actually design a graphic and the people who kind of have an idea of what they want in the graphic, and you're kind of trying to execute that in the best possible way. Of course, you there's so many things that you have to take into account. I mean, you know it much better than I do. You're in this visual world, but this is really what I enjoy about my role, and I think what it differentiates it a little bit from the medical science liaison role, that it's this bridging position between the creative people in the agency and the science or clinical background that comes from the clinical trials, or from the fundamental science that lies beneath those mechanisms.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that, actually, based on a question that was emailed to us earlier. They were actually asking about how much prior experience you need with medical writing to get into the field, but I guess and maybe you can shed some light on that, but also in particular whether or not there's a benefit to getting some kind of certification. So I guess for medical affairs, you can get certification, at least in the US. I don't know what the situation is here in Europe, but like would medical affairs certification or something like that help? Like, are people at your agency certified in some way, or do they have some specific training in this field, or is this something you can get into?
So to my knowledge, they don't. So it's something that people get into by finding it interesting to write and starting to write. I mean, I guess that's what Sarah did as well. She just started writing, and then people found it enjoyable to see what she wrote. And I guess if the writing part is something that you enjoy about science, I mean, it is a big part of science, as I found. I mean, you're constantly writing theses or abstract for conferences or summaries of what you've been doing. So if you find that part enjoyable, then I guess it's worthwhile applying to those kind of positions. And I don't think that you need a certificate. But Sarah, Joel, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, I haven't really heard of a certificate to become a medical writer or a science writer, but I mean, it's always important, especially as a non-native English speaker. So in my case, it's obviously because I write everything in English. I did a couple of, just like writing courses, grammar courses, how to structure articles, just to, to learn all of this still, even though that was my passion, that is my passion. But you should never stop learning, basically, and always try to improve your skills, of course. But I don't have like a proper certificate in writing or anything. No, I haven't heard of that, to be honest.
So I wouldn't know about certification for medical writing. I'd be surprised if there isn't an association for medical writers where you can get some sort of certificate. I know for the AMI, the Association of Medical Illustrators, they do have a certification, and they have CEUs, so you can continue your learning. So yeah, I know that there are. With most Scicomm career types, you'll find some sort of association. I know there's a medical science liaison association as well. But these certifications that you get from those associations, they're by no means a requirement to getting a job or to start working in that field. But I guess they help with certain employers who will look for that. But I wouldn't say it's a requirement. Possibly just a bonus.
Yep.
We lost some moderator
Lost
again.
Anchor again, and I think we're getting close to the hour soon. But I don't know. Have you both got time still to keep chatting?
Yeah. Nice Anchor.
Yep.
Hi, Anchor. Can you hear us?
Joel, I had a question for you, because I think this, like, those graphics that they're doing is they're really amazing. How are you how are you going forward with this company that you're founding? Like, what is your strategy?
Sorry, I hope I didn't miss anything there.
No, so I'm just curious. Like, how
Yeah.
do you approach people? Do you approach journals actually, or do you how do you do it?
Yeah. So far,
I think that I mean, because it's still lagging here.
Anchor sabotaging us.
yeah, Anchor. I was just Jacob just asked me a question, so I was just going to answer that quickly, if that's okay. Okay, I'll just carry on. Yeah, so it's actually,
Oh yeah, for sure. Sorry, I
yeah.
I got kicked
No
out.
worries, no worries. Thank you. Yeah, Jacob, thanks for a great question. Yeah, I mean, it's not by no means starting anything new is by no means straightforward. You kind of zigzag and 2 step forwards, 1 step back, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, so far, I did a lot of networking with other science illustrators and animators, some of whom are a lot more established than me, and they've been able to provide me with some clients which they haven't been able to service themselves because they're too busy. So that's been a help. And then also I had a lot of contacts from my conference work that I've been able to contact and let them know. They're mostly researchers, so they'll be at some point wanting to get papers published and perhaps want a journal cover done. And then some of them will work for companies that might want a mode of action video done. But it's still very early days for me. In that sense, I wouldn't say I'm definitely not at a full-time capacity yet. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that you can do. Building up a social media presence is always helpful as well, and just keep posting on work you're doing, portfolio pieces. There's a little bit of difficulty in that. Say you do like a great piece of work for a client, especially if it's like a biotech or something, they'll probably give you a non-disclosure agreement, so you might not be able to share that work for some time. And then that's when you kind of keep going with your portfolio pieces, illustrations, animations of topics you're just interested in, which most of the work that I show is portfolio pieces. So yeah, I would just recommend anyone kind of starting out there, just keep practicing, keep churning out, doing as many portfolio pieces you can, and then sharing them, whatever means you have available to you on your social media or through your network via emails or social media messages and posts. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a good advice. Yeah, to if you want to get into the field, like be it illustrating or writing, just keep practicing, just do it, and try to get better and bring it out to the world. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Sarah, how did you land your job as blog responsible at the Microbiology Association?
So for the Microbiology Society, I was already working as a social media editor. And then when I started my science communication business, I just approached them telling them, hey, this is what I want to do now. Do you have any need? What are your projects right now? And they said, hey, actually we just started this blog, and because that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I was like, do you want to take it over? I'm like, yeah, of course. So now I'm basically just talking with scientists and trying to get them to write blog posts for the Microbiology Society. And so I'm more of an editor now than a writer, but that's really cool as well. I really like it.
Nice. So it really pays off to just approach people and ask about.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah,
and again,
absolutely.
Help them bring the message across and everything. Yeah.
And there's something to be said, like for quality of communication when you're trying to network. Obviously it goes from messaging someone to speaking with them over the phone and then meeting with them face to face. So like if you have been messaging someone and you have the opportunity to meet with them and discuss things and learn from them more, like always take that opportunity. Like every career opportunity I've had has been through sort of networking and meeting people face to face at every opportunity.
Yeah.
I'd like to, I don't think we've touched on this very much, but I think it's a very important thing to bring up. Also because, two of our speakers here, I guess, are self-employed, and it kind of fits into a lot of the questions that came up. Like we got some questions in the emails about how to get started and all this kind of thing. But I think how to get started was pretty well covered. You basically jump in and get started and start trying things out and finding the things that you are good at, finding the things that you like. And but in terms of how to get started in the industry, if there's not necessarily a job that's advertised. Now, Sarah and Joel, you both started your own ventures. You both started your own companies. Do you want to comment a bit about, like, did you have previous experience with entrepreneurship? Or was this kind of the first time? And also, it would be nice to hear about that journey, because I can imagine it's been very challenging.
It is. It has been. Do you want to go first, Joel?
No, Sarah, after you.
Okay. So why did I decide to do this in the end? Obviously, as I said, with the pandemic, everything was so uncertain. Like you had no idea what's going to happen, where you could move to. I kind of had a plan of where I wanted to move to, but I couldn't really. And I really like the idea of being my own boss. I mean, even academia is already like super flexible when it comes to hierarchy and stuff. But still, I really wanted to be my own boss, and I wanted to live wherever I wanted and be flexible on the location and do all of this. So I thought, for me, starting my own business was just the way to go. The journey there. The administration, it's a lot. I don't know. I heard it in other countries. Oh yeah, it's the worst here in this country, but I think still Germany with all the bureaucracy, it's a lot of stuff. It's annoying, and I'm so glad that it's over.
Yeah, I can add to that. I got to say, so I basically got two freelance careers, once with the conferences and the other with the visualizations. With the conferences, it was certainly easier to get started because I'd already had some employed experience working in that career. I would say the visualization's been a lot tougher to get started. It's taken longer. But it's also because I think there's been a lot more to learn in terms of the tools, the software tools, and also getting practice and building up a portfolio. For my conferences, I just basically had to list the conferences and show some agendas that I'd already done, whilst I was employed. But for the illustrations, I have to do like loads of new illustrations and animations as portfolio pieces, and those things take time. I mean, even now, like my preference, to some extent would be to be employed. In Germany, you need everyone needs health insurance, and that's a lot more expensive if you're a freelancer, because you have to pay both your contributions and your employer's contributions. So things like that can make freelancing life difficult. But freelancing does give you the opportunity. I wouldn't say a lot of people have the impression that freelancing, you can charge more money or you can earn more money because, you're a contractor or whatever, but that hasn't been my experience in most situations. But what it does give you is a lot of flexibility. Say, like I work from a shared office. I'm not there today because, coronavirus, we're not meant to be using them. But I rent a shared office, and I find that to be quite a relaxing working environment relative to like a big busy office where there's loads of people flying around. And like, I can set my own hours, basically, things like that are bonuses of being freelance. But it is, for a lot of people, it is very risky, and there are costs associated with it that some people don't want to take on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you for, I think we're just going to start wrapping up now, actually, just in the interest of time. We've already gone over a little bit, but which is good news, I think. It seemed like the discussion flowed. We had a lot of great questions, had a really good turnout. Unless there's anything that people are dying to jump in and say. If not, could you maybe let everybody know, we'll go one by one, about where people can find you, maybe on social media or your websites. And and then we'll just slowly bring this to a close. Jakob, anything you want to share?
I mean, basically via LinkedIn. I think this is how this was promoted, right? You will find me via LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm in touch with Flamingo, so I guess whoever's watching this knows about this via Flamingo, so they would be able to find me. And certainly very happy to also answer questions afterwards about anything, also those job opportunities that are waiting. And thanks a lot for the organization, Anchor and Flamingo. Really very nice event.
No problem. Joel, where can people find you or find out more?
Yeah, so especially for my visualizations, go to www.molecularvisuals.com. And LinkedIn is also a really good place to find me. I'm there quite often. And and once again, thank you very much, Anchor, and the rest of your team at Flamingo for a really wonderful webinar. And thank you to Jakob and Sarah as well for some interesting questions and interactions. I very much enjoyed them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Sarah, anything in particular you want people to go and visit?
Visit the blog, because I just saw that there's another question about writing more like a blog. So actually, I can lift a little secret. We're actually working on a little bacterial workbook right now, and we hope to publish this by the end of this year. So for this, if you're keen on this, sign up for the newsletter or just follow us on social media at Bacteria World. And again as well, if you have any questions, shoot me an email or just a comic, whatever. And thanks Anchor and Flamingo for the organization. It's been really nice.
Thanks,
that sounds great. Look forward to seeing the book, more from everybody. And everybody, please, thank you. First of all, thank you everybody who came out. I hope you enjoyed the event. And we'll be in touch. Flamingo's also going to be making a big announcement in the next few weeks, so keep posted for that. And otherwise, just give us a link, give us a follow, and we'll keep in touch. So thank you all very much for a great event. And of course, thank you very much to all of our speakers and Aaron, who's in the the background and has been this all possible on the technical side. So thank you, everybody.